Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the November 20th meeting of the Lower Providence Township Board of Supervisors. If you could please all rise and join me in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Deb, could you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Mrs. Ekman.
Here.
Mr. Sardini.
Here.
Mr. Duffy.
Here.
Mr. Thomas. Here. Mrs. Zimmerman.
Here. Okay, thank you. Before our meeting this evening, we held our executive session and we discussed legal and personnel matters. With that, we'll move on to our first item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. We have some minutes in that and monthly reports. And escrow release for Horizon. It looks like, I think that might be their final escrow release. Okay, if someone would like to entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions from the board members? Are there any questions from the audience on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. Okay. We have several presentations this evening. It's always a nice time of year. We get to let's see who's the feedback's coming from. I don't know if it's my microphone or somebody else. Sorry about that. Okay, so our 2014 presentations, the township has some annual donation checks we'd like to give out to our local nonprofit organizations. And the first group, if we could call forward Lower Providence Community Center and our representatives, Lower Providence Community Center Ambulance. We have Brian Kuklitsky and Janet Azera.
Thank you, Bill. Hi, Brian and Janet. Doing well. How are you? Good to see you as well. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors of Lower Providence Township and all the residents, I'd like to present these checks to you for the Lower Providence Senior Center and for the Lower Providence Community Center Ambulance. And thank you for the wonderful work that you do on behalf of the residents of Lower Providence Township, helping us in our times of need and helping our senior citizens. And the work you do is certainly a tremendous benefit to all the residents, and it is my pleasure to award you these checks this evening. So I will give Janet you the ambulance check, and Brian you the senior center check, and ask that you make some comments for us.
You want to go first, Janet? I got it. On behalf of our organization, on behalf of our board of directors, our staff, the members, and the seniors at our organization, we appreciate the donation made by Lower Providence Township. It helps us continue our operations. Also helps the senior group continue to meet on Wednesday and call bingo numbers outside my door. It's a good time. But no, we greatly appreciate this. This helps us in a long way throughout the year. And we appreciate the strong working relationship between our organization and the township.
And we're looking forward to getting that building done and under roof. Keep waiting for that hole in the roof to close.
Well, we were missing a piece of metal that has
Okay.
now appeared. Now we need vents.
Excellent, excellent.
Vents were on a 6-week back order. So.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, next up, we'll have the presentation of the annual check to the Lower Providence Township Volunteer Fire Company. And we have Matt Sibley, the president, is here. Thanks, Matt. Okay, welcome. On behalf of the Lower Providence Township Board of Supervisors, we'd like to give you this check, our annual check to contribute to the fire company. And we certainly do appreciate and 100% still volunteer fire company and all the protection that you provide for us during the year. It's certainly, we can't put in a dollar amount on what you do for this township, and we do appreciate it. So, if you mind saying a few words.
On behalf of the members, officers of the fire company, I'd like to thank the township for their continual support. We're moving into some economic decisions on apparatus replacement as our fleet is aging, and we do need to address that, as well as we're in the process of upping our AD&D and life insurance policy, which is going to cost a substantial amount of money, but add the right protection for the families of the members of the fire company. So we do continually appreciate the support of the township, and we thank you.
Okay, next up, we have our annual check, a presentation to the Visiting Nurse Association. And I believe we have Angela Nunez here. Come forward, Angela. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Mr. Nix. Thank you for coming. On behalf of the Lower Providence Board of Supervisors, we would like to thank you for all the great work you do here in our community by presenting you with this check as our annual contribution to the Visiting Nurse Association. Thank you very much for coming out and caring to people that can't come out of their homes and that are in desperate need of individual care and attention. So thank you on behalf of the residents of the township.
Good evening. I would like, on behalf of VNA Community Services, to thank the Board of Supervisors on behalf of everyone at VNA Community Services, especially our Executive Director, Richard Circo. We work with the most vulnerable populations in the community, and so it's always helpful when we can get support for the programs that we have. One of our programs is our in-home services, where we have aides that go out and work with the disabled and the elderly to keep them in the community, in their home where they prefer to be. And another program that we have is the Personal Navigator program, which is special to me. That is the program that I do. And that is an access to services program and enrollment. So we help people see what benefits they're entitled to, and we help them to get those benefits so that they can be more self-sufficient in the community. Right now, there's a big push, a lot of activity with health care because it is open enrollment period for Medicare, and so we are helping seniors and disabled see what would be their best coverage for Medicare. That's a lot of information that comes on the mail and that people see on TV, and so we're trying to help them sort through that. It is also open enrollment period for the Affordable Care Act. So some people got insurance through that last year. They're coming back to re-enroll, or people who didn't get insurance last year are coming forward to enroll. Plus, Pennsylvania, as of January 1st, will have a form of expanded Medicaid, so there will be other people that will be covered. So we're working with the community so that everybody will have some health insurance and let them know where they fall and what is the best coverage for them. So again, thank you. We appreciate your support of the work that we do.
I don't know if you have a website that you can tell the people at home where to go to get the information.
There you go.
VNACS.org. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, and our last organization this evening is the Victim Service Center of Montgomery County. And I'd like to welcome Mary Onama. Welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Mary, how are you? Thanks for coming out. On behalf of the Lower Providence Board of Supervisors and the residents of the township, we would like to present the Victim Services of Montgomery County with this check as our annual contribution to the Victim Services Center. I know as an attorney that has represented numerous clients that have gone through and used the Victim Services, what a vital role it plays in the criminal justice system here within the county, being a voice for victims of crime, letting them understand their rights and help them navigate the system. Oftentimes, people only think about the judges and the police and the prosecutors, but there are many people behind the scenes, including the probation department and the victim services center, such as yourself, that helps the victims of crimes and helps them move on with their lives and get over the terrible offenses that they've had committed against them. So thank you very much.
On behalf of Victim Services Center, I want to thank the residents of this township, all of the supervisors, and especially your police chief. Chief Carroll has been a very critical part of Victim Services. He was there way before my time. He was the treasurer for Victim Services when it was really going through one of the most difficult financial times. He is still a trainer for our volunteers. I want to thank all of you for always thinking about us because it makes a big difference. This check does make a big difference in filling the gap for reductions that we've experienced. As you know, we lost all county funding as of last year, so this is very critical to us. We provide very critical services in this community, including safety education programs for students from pre-K to high school, including also college students. So thanks very much. And I just want to also add that next year we're celebrating our 40th anniversary. And Chief Carroll's wife, actually, we recruited her to be on the planning committee along with 6 wives of chiefs of police of Montgomery County. I asked them to appoint their wives or somebody from their township, and we were very, very grateful to have at least 7 representatives, 5 of which are the wives of the police chiefs. So we're thankful very much.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3 this evening, and that would be new business. Item 3A is consideration of submission of application to PennDOT District 6 for a multi-way stop sign system at Eagleville Road, Pinetown Road, and Sunnyside Avenue. And Lieutenant Turtle, I believe you're going to handle this topic.
Yes, thank you. As we're all well aware, the intersection at Eagleville, Sunnyside, and Pinetown is one of our probably most traveled intersections and one of our frequently crash-involved intersections. It's probably been one of the most studied intersections over the past 5 years in the township. As a result, earlier this year, McMahon Associates conducted another study to look at some of the things we've done to the intersections in the hopes of decreasing crashes. We have not seen the reduction that we had hoped. Based on McMahon's study, they are recommending our next step, which would be to place a multi-way stop intersection or a 4-way stop there. As a result of that, the police department at this point concurs with that, and we would ask the board allow us to proceed to going to PennDOT with the recommendation, since it is a state highway, to have that placed into effect. If we are authorized to do that, once PennDOT comes forward with the agreement, we would need to come back to the board to have that stop authorized through statute in the code so that we can then enforce the stop sign.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant. The board was given quite a lot of data, the traffic counts and accident counts and all that, so that's very helpful. I do have, I guess, one question for you now. So this intersection has been looked at numerous times and how to mitigate some of these issues. Now, from what I recall, at one point there was a flashing yellow light signal proposed, but we weren't able to kind of finish that off because of right-of-way acquisitions.
Correct.
And so there was a property owner that, I guess, wouldn't grant the right-of-way acquisition.
Correct, and I believe the township went through several steps in an effort to remediate that, and we weren't successful.
Okay, so now we're going to try the 4-way stop sign.
Correct. This was probably, at the time, the flashing light was our best proposal. Since we're not able to proceed with that, I think our next best step to try and alleviate the problem there would be the stop sign. There obviously is going to be some concerns with that. I'm sure some growing pains, but in order to alleviate what we have down there, I think it's a step that we need to take.
Mm-hmm. So how do you, to be devil's advocate, so how do you, well, you will not avoid, but how do you avoid the then rear end collisions that could occur once these are installed?
I don't know if we're going to be able to avoid. Hopefully we can reduce, and the way we're going to have to do that is through education. If the proposal is allowed through PennDOT and the signs do go in place, there's a number of steps we have. There'll be additional highway markings as well as the stop signs, pre-advanced warnings of the stop, and for I would think a substantial period of time, we would probably place signboards before both approaches going north and south for a time period to help people recognize that it's now a four-way stop. You're going to have a concern with the growing pains with any foul weather we may incur, people getting accustomed to the new four-way intersection. We can only educate, and that's going to take some time.
Okay, all right. Do we have any other questions from board members?
No, that's what I was going to ask.
Oh, I still have a question? I'm sorry.
No, it's good, though.
Lieutenant, I don't really have any questions, but more of a comment. Obviously, I grew up on Pinetown Road, and as a teenager, I was involved in an accident at that intersection. So I know it's been quite a dangerous intersection for a long time, so I applaud the steps that the police department is taking and leading the way and making sure that it becomes safer for the residents. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions from the audience on this subject? I know the township is always apprehensive with having stop signs and especially four-way stop signs added, but I think this one has been well thought out and researched. And
We've taken baby steps to try and remediate the problem, and none of those have been successful so far. We continue to see a number of crashes with a similar cause. You have an alignment issue there, you have a hill issue there, you have some sight distance issues, and all the little steps haven't worked so far, so we need to take the next step.
okay, well, thank you for that. If it was, is the board's pleasure, would someone like to make a motion to go to, with the application and submit it to PennDOT for the request for the stop signs?
I would make the motion.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Question from the audience? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Okay, thank you. Item 3B, authorization to advertise the appointment of Mally Falconaro as the Township Auditor for the year 2014 at our reorganization meeting. Jerry?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Second-class township code requires that we advertise at least 30 days in advance of appointing a CPA firm to replace our elected auditors, which is what we anticipate doing at the reorganization meeting, as you mentioned. As such, we would need to get that advertisement in the newspapers as soon as possible. So I'm respectfully requesting that the board authorize staff to advertise Mally as our CPA firm to perform the 2014 financial audit.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. All right, would someone like to make a motion to authorize that advertisement?
Make a motion.
Motion, we have a second?
Second.
A motion, a second. Any questions on that motion from the board? Questions from the audience? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Okay, item 3C, discussion and consideration on the collective bargaining agreement with our AFSCME District 88. Jerry, you're going to take that one as well.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The agreement that the board has in their packet represents a very positive and professional process that the township negotiation team conducted with our local AFSCME union. The contract would be effective January 1st, 2015 and terminate on December 31st, 2018. It is a 4-year contract period. It's replacing the 5-year contract period that we currently have. As noted in the memo in your packet, I highlighted all the changes in yellow so that you could easily be drawn to what we have changed, but I'll mention for the benefit of those in the audience as well as those viewing on the rebroadcast of what the key changes are. And I'm going to probably stick to the ones that have a financial impact rather than ones that simply are quality of life issues for the employees. The wage increases, the first 3 years of the contract would be 2.75%. The fourth and final year would be a 3.5% increase. The members of the AFSCME union that are in the defined benefit pension plan, which most people refer to as the old pension plan, will be increasing their contributions to the plan so that at the end of the 4-year contract period, they would be contributing 1.5%. Now, that would also include the non-union members of that defined benefit plan. The members of the AFSCME union that are in the 401A defined contribution pension plan would see their contribution from the township increased from 6% of their gross wages to 8%. That was an item that the AFSCME union negotiated with us, and it goes a little bit more toward a balance between the two pension plans for the employees. Finally, the key area that we went into negotiations with was to continue to try to control the rising health care costs. What we wanted to do was ask both unions to go back to the health plan that we had in place on November 30th of 2013. That was the plan designed with Keystone at that time. Our current provider is Aetna through the Delaware Valley Insurance Trust, and they're able to create the same plan design. AFSCME has agreed to do that. That plan basically increases co-pays, thus the savings to the township and the premiums. Because AFSCME has agreed to go to that insurance plan, and as will the administrative non-union employees, the township is going to be able to save $35,000 on health insurance costs beginning in beginning in 2015. So those are the key areas. Are there any questions?
Jerry, not really a question, but a point. The 1.5 pension contribution over the life of the contract, that's actually an increase from 0%, right?
Well, it's increased from 0% for the non-union members, but it's an increase, currently they're contributing 0.5%, the AFSCME members.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Any other questions from board members? All right. Well, we certainly had a lot of effort from the collective bargaining team, and this was led by Supervisor Sergini and Supervisor Duffy, that spent a lot of time with the union and negotiating, and I think they've come up with a very fair agreement, and we're happy that you've come up with this agreement. I know you put a lot of time in, and we do appreciate that. It was a long year for you.
We'd be remiss in not mentioning how cooperative and how amicable the negotiations were with the representatives from the Public Works Department and AFSCME. They were extremely professional, and while it was certainly a negotiation where each side stuck to their guns, it was always very professional at the same time. So, I would like to thank the negotiating team from the Public Works Department.
Absolutely, and two of the members of the negotiation team currently live in the township, and one just recently in the last year or two moved from the township, and they were very cognizant as residents and a former resident that the township only has the capacity to increase our expenses to a certain point, and they were very reasonable because of that, and we appreciated that.
Thank you, Jerry. And I would say that, the supervisors speak often of maintaining the quality of services that we provide to the residents while also maintaining our fiscal responsibility, and the collaborative process we were able to enter into, I think, was able to balance both of those needs and also show the value that we place on our AFSCME members.
Okay, well then with that, would someone like to make a motion so that we could accept this agreement before us?
I'll make that motion.
Jason, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions from board members? Any questions from the audience at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Jerry, you're not done yet. Item 3D is authorization for staff to execute renewal policies for property, liability, and auto insurance policies.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. For those of you who have been on the board for a few years, it's typically the practice in the month of November for staff to request authorization to execute the renewal contracts for our insurance coverage. The reason we do this is so we can keep the process open until the very last minute. They renew, these policies renew on November 30th. As it happens, I did receive a proposal yesterday from our current provider, CNA, that will allow us to shave about $15,000 off the draft budget amount for that line item. It's highly likely that that will be the best offer, but just the same, there are another 10 days to the month, so we could, I'm requesting that the board authorize staff to go with the best quote and secure the insurance coverage that the township needs.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. It's always good news to hear when those rates are going down, so we
Well,
appreciate.
just to clarify, not really going down, this $15,000 would be cost avoidance. Rather, we had budgeted for a 10% increase, and it came in just under 2%.
Okay. So lower increases.
Right.
Thank you. Okay. Would we like to entertain a motion to accept Jerry's request so that she can execute the renewal of the policies at the lowest quote?
Make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Do we have any questions on that from the board? Questions from the audience on the motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. All right, and the last new business item would be item 3E, discussion and consideration of execution of a revised agreement with Susquehanna Trust.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. In your packet, you have two agreements. You'll have the agreement that was signed between the Township and Susquehanna Municipal Insurance Trust in 2013 when we entered into their trust to secure our workers' comp coverage for our employees. During 2014, the executive committee of the trust have incorporated various changes into their bylaws. Pretty much changes that have been their practice over the years, but they've finally formalized them in a revised agreement. Township solicitor has reviewed the agreement, and without putting words in his mouth, I believe you said you had other clients that have also executed the agreements with Susquehanna Municipal Trust. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Okay. And I tried to put in a few bullet points what the key changes in the agreement are. The one being that the agreement now has actual definitions of terminology rather than references to the definitions. The ones that are probably a little more critical are that the percentage of membership needed to call a meeting of the trust has been increased to 51%. Prior to that, 25% of the membership was all that was needed to call a meeting of the trust. Members are now allowed to vote by proxy rather than in person. It is something they have been doing, but now it's formalized in the agreement. Finally, one of the items is something we just did here the other month. Members are now required to adopt the trust safety manual, and we have done that, I think it was on October 16th. So those are the key areas.
This is your workers' comp pooled carrier, much like you have Divot for health insurance.
That's correct.
Susquehanna's, this just covers your workers' comp. This is mainly cleanup, Jerry, like governance.
Yeah, right, and it wasn't perhaps the best term, but that's what I referred to it in the memo. It's pretty much their version of a cleanup ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. And so, John, you've reviewed all this?
Yes.
And okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ready to go.
All righty. Okay, so with that, would someone like to entertain a motion that we execute the revised agreement with Susquehanna Trust?
I would make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions on that motion? Questions from the audience on the motion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Okay, we have one item to add to, that's not on the agenda. It was actually an item that was tabled from our last meeting. This is a request for a road opening permit waiver from the sewer authority. Jason, you have that?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I had the opportunity to attend the November meeting of the Sewer Authority, and I asked the authority about that permit. And the situation was that a contractor doing work on behalf of the Sewer Authority, so really on behalf of the residents of the township, was working over the summer to work on some infiltration of water into our sewer lines. They were working in the vicinity of Amy and Jennifer Drives, and while they were doing the work, they in effect put a sleeve into the pipe, and then the sleeve expands and seals off the pipe and stops the water from coming in. When they put the sleeve into this particular section of pipe, the sleeve hardened before it actually hit the wall of the pipe and diminished the diameter of the pipe. The company worked for the better part of a week to find some way to avoid opening the road, and after a week's time, in conjunction with our sewer authority, determined that the only way to fix it was to open the road, remove that whole section of pipe, and to reinsert another, a new pipe in there, actually, because it had hardened and it could no longer be used. So they were in effect doing the business of the township. I don't have a definitive answer as to whether or not the $150 permit would be charged back to the company, or if the company would then turn around and in effect charge it back to the sewer authority, but that is the information that I was able to glean. I think it's 150, if I remember. Anybody remember?
75 sticks in my head.
I could be
Mike.
wrong.
Patrick says.
Mike, do you remember? That was 150.
I'm looking for notes, but that's my recollection as well.
What? It was
The 150,
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
All right, okay, thank you, Jason. Sorry about that confusion. Okay, would someone like to make a motion then that we waive the road opening permit?
Based on the information I have, I would recommend that we waive the permit. I would make that motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions?
Not questions, but I would just say that the contractor did a substantial amount of work for the authority over the summer, and it's an amicable relationship that ended on good standing.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I have a comment. I think we need to sort of readdress our road opening permits. I know that this same permit is looked at for any person that wants to go ahead and, replace a slab of their concrete, and you're charging them $175 to replace a piece of their sidewalk. So I think at some point, this whole ordinance and permit fee needs to be addressed, so.
Maybe we need a committee.
I think we have one forming by that week. At the moment, we are jockeying back and forth on dates, and availability at this time of year is kind of tough.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, so we have a motion and a second then. Let's, do we have any other questions? We'll call for the vote. Questions from the audience on this one? All right, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carried. Okay. Several announcements this evening. We have our bid opening for the trash and recycling bid has been extended to December 2nd at 10 a.m. And our township engineer has, I guess you could elaborate on that.
Chairman, yes. We held a pre-bid meeting here in this room a couple weeks back with the prospective trash haulers. In this bid, we're asking for a great deal of information from each potential bidder, as well as a fairly complicated bid form with a number of options available. And each bidder suggested that they would be able to perform a much more favorable bid, providing us with more options and better fees if they had some more time to really analyze and get to the bottom dollar, rather than trying to rush something through for actually a bid that was supposed to go off yesterday. So we suggested that was probably in the benefit of the township to extend the date, and we're looking at December 2nd as an opening, and hope to report back to this board on the 4th with some results, give us some time to deliberate over those results, and maybe award then end of the month. So that's the timeline we're proposing today.
Okay. And that, what, did you have to put that in the form of an addendum then, with that extension?
We did. We actually issued 3 addendums to the trash hauling proposed bid contract. The first addendum was really meeting agendas for the pre-bid meeting. The second addendum was meeting minutes from the pre-bid meeting. And then we suggested that each bidder had an opportunity to submit questions to the township up until Friday afternoon last week. Anything that came up as they were reviewing the documents. So the third addendum was the answers to those questions. And since that time, we've had very little action from any bidder, so I'm hoping that they have all the information they need to give us a very succinct and thought-out bid.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Surely.
Look forward to seeing what comes back. Okay, Zoning Hearing Board will hold their meeting on November 24th at 7 p.m. And Mike, could you tell us what's on their agenda?
Certainly. There were 2 matters that were continued from last month. One was J&K Excavating concerning a vacant property here on Ridge and Grange. And then the second was Taco Bell, who's in for a variance on signage and impervious coverage. Earlier today, the applicant for J&K Excavating withdrew their application. They're no longer seeking the relief. So at this point, we are down, in the sense, the one hearing on Monday, which would be the continuation of Taco Bell's application.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. All right, our annual community tree lighting will be held on Friday, December 5th, 6:30 to 9 o'clock. And the Township Caring and Sharing Holiday Food Collection is underway. Our boxes out front, I see we're overflowing. Items can be dropped off here at the Township Building during normal business hours. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, comments and other business. Comments from board members. The library had their event. I missed that one.
Oh. Well, they had the fall fundraising event, the Beats, Brews, and Books. It was good turnout. They had country line dancing, and silent auction, raised some money for the library. It all went off very nicely.
Excellent. Thank you, Don.
Madam Chairwoman, on Tuesday evening of this week, I attended the Parks and Rec monthly meeting. The Parks and Rec Board continued to plan for the tree lighting on December the 5th. Everybody should be excited to hear that Santa's live reindeer will be here at the tree lighting ceremony. So please come out and bring your children and let them see Rudolph and his friends. Additionally, last night the Planning Commission held their monthly board meeting. It was moved up a week due to the holiday, but it was last night. On the agenda was an electronic sign ordinance that gathered much spirited debate amongst where it would be, because it would affect the township property and school district property, so it had much debate, and I think the Planning Commission made a motion to allow signs on township property but not on school district property, so that'll come before the board at a later date. Additionally, the Gambone property or development on Evansburg Road up in the Collegeville section was presented before the Planning Commission. It's just a concept at this point, so no final plans have been submitted. And Kimco was in here to talk about the Eagleville Plaza shopping center and their desire to have the shopping center subdivided into different condominium ownership of the shopping center. So different sections of the building would be owned by different entities instead of the whole shopping center owned by one entity.
Okay, thanks for that update, Patrick. Anybody else have anything?
I did the sewer.
You did your sewer.
authority already.
I believe I saw a recent public service announcement from the police department about a series of break-ins. Maybe that would be helpful to residents to keep their eyes open, doors locked.
Yes, we've had over the past weekend, we had a number of break-ins in the Cold Springs sections of the township, which would be Cold Springs Drive, Dorchester Road, Stoughton Road, Arcola, and Level area. The break-ins to the homes were actually minor forced entry, basically cutting of screens to get to unlocked doors, and also entry into unlocked vehicles. So the main point that we're trying to get out with our press releases and our Facebook coverage was be sure to lock your doors. Make it difficult. If you make it difficult, most of these people will move on to the areas that are not difficult. So let's make it hard for them, not easy for them.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant. Okay, we'll open it up courtesy to the floor. If any residents have anything? Yes, Kathy.
Kathy Escape, 540 Highgate Road. Patrick, I'd like to thank you for the segue because my questions are an interpretation of the road openings and how they pertain to individuals. I did look up the permit and it asks several questions. Will there be an approved surface road opening? Yes or no? This is a no. Areas of openings in the approved surface, length of the trench, depth of the trench, distinctive center line of the roadway to the end of the pavement. None of these things apply to this situation. I have a client who's moving out of the township. They had several blocks of their concrete that were raised from a tree. So they spent a lot of money, had the blocks taken out, had the tree stump ground down, put in nice, lovely new concrete blocks, and now they're being assessed $150 for doing a good job. Most people, when they have these tripping hazards, will only feather in and do a half-baked job. These people did a good job, and like I said, they're being penalized for this. The interpretation is very confusing. I did read through to the end. It talks a lot about contractors and what they have to do, and it does talk about driveways and aprons and so forth, but it really just pertains to real road openings. This is a sidewalk that goes nowhere. It dead ends into a fence. So no one is even using this sidewalk. However, these people chose to do a very good job in fixing it. So I'm asking you all to waive the $150 that these people are being charged.
Well, typically, Kathy, the person that paid the fee has to basically, write a little note requesting formally the township supervisors consider that waiving. We could certainly would be happy to look into it a little further if they want to go through with that.
I've never heard that. I've never really gotten any answers. These people have moved out of the area. They're settling on their house next Wednesday. So if I could write the letter on their behalf, if that's what's required.
I don't know if that would be appropriate. I mean, typically, if anybody wants to waive a sign permit or whoever the responsible person is that's paying the bill, if they're asking for a refund.
Typically, I would agree, but we just waived the road opening permit on behalf of a contractor's request of the sewer authority. So it seems to me that it would be parallel.
I think so too. And then
Well,
I guess.
I mean, I think though, as of right now, the board doesn't have an identity of the individual or the property. So I think, I would certainly be willing to consider it as long as a letter is made on behalf of them indicating when the work was done, who it is, the property, and all those kind of informations, and then we can have something to act on.
All right, you're saying on behalf of them. So are you saying that you will take a letter from me?
I'm just saying, well, I think we need to see a letter with
But
all
then-
the pertinent information.
How quickly can you act on it?
It would have to be our next meeting.
And they're settling on Wednesday.
Well, they don't have to still be.
They won't get a UNO.
Well, they've
Or
already
will
done- They've already done the work, right?
Yes. And then when we did the inspection for the UNO, it was brought up, they have to pay $150 because they took and did a very fine job fixing the sidewalk. And I do believe if they knew that, they'd do like everyone else and they'd get a little can of whatever that is and just feather it in because that's acceptable for the UNO.
Mike, how about we have you look at it a little and reevaluate it?
Thank you. I'd like the opportunity to get up to speed on exactly the details of what it is, but certainly we don't want to hold up if the work's already done, then it's just a matter of dealing with it administratively and making it work out for everybody. Also to the point that I guess both Mr. Duffy and Ms. Eske have raised, I think that I'd like to sit down with John Primus and talk about, maybe a procedural couple of things. One is maybe generally our forms are more general than in some other municipalities where folks have 50 different forms. We try to limit it and then adapt forms, and so I think some of the confusion that Ms. Eske points out had to do with maybe a form that's slightly too general, so maybe we need to come up with a form to deal with a sidewalk differently than maybe a road opening. Secondly, I think we need to talk a little bit about how we look at it from a property maintenance type of resale thing. And then thirdly, when our ordinance ad hoc committee gets together, then we can probably also talk about maybe how the fees could be tiered in such a way so that, again, the issue that Mr. Duffy brought up in terms of the major construction thing, as opposed to somebody replacing sidewalk block.
Mike, I would appreciate that because I think we want to incentivize our residents to go ahead and maintain their properties and replace tripping hazards as opposed to making them not want to do it because they have to pay a $150 fee on top of it.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's a matter of maybe getting a little bit more detailed to the function as opposed to how general we have been handling it in the past.
Thank you.
So will you suggest how we can proceed so we can get these people to settlement?
When is settlement?
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
coming, the 26th.
Why don't they pay it, and then we'll put it on the board's agenda. If the board waives it, we'll reimburse them.
Okay, you won't give them the UNO without the payment?
I don't have enough information. I think that's up to Mike.
You need the UNO for next Wednesday.
Correct.
Okay. I mean,
We could possibly do a conditional UNO. Would depend on the buyer's mortgage company, whether they'll accept it.
they should.
Some do and some, it depends on who it is.
Talking about $150, right?
True.
Yeah.
I do like Rich's idea of possibly paying the 150 and then we can talk about
Reimburse
it at
them?
our next meeting and reimburse them if we see
Yeah,
it's
we
appropriate.
issue reimbursements frequently, so
Pull it out at the
it's
settlement.
not like we hold it.
Title company can pull it out at the settlement table, $150, right?
Title companies don't like to escrow anymore. I think if you agree, we'll have the resident
Or just have it paid?
paid, and then we'll inform them that they will possibly get it back, or
Yep.
they will get it back.
And
So-
there'll be a letter needs to be sent also.
By them.
I mean, I don't see any problem if you want to send it on their behalf.
Okay, yeah,
As long
because
as it
they're already in North Carolina, so it will be,
As long as it identifies the property owners, the address, the tax
Okay.
parcel number, and the request, then that should be sufficient.
right. And I do think it's a good idea to review a lot of these fees In fact, the zoning hearing board had asked our solicitor to send a letter to the board and ask them to have a review of all these fees, because some of them do seem to be a bit out of kilter.
I think one of the fees is that if you replace your hot water heater, you're supposed to pay $75. And I don't think that's ever inspected or people even know about that. So that's one of the issues for permits that we should be taking a look at.
I believe so too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Christina.
I'm just going to piggyback on some of that comment. I agree that the fees need to be reviewed. I replaced the fence in a fence and was hounded for a $75 permit fee. And the fence wasn't required, it wasn't necessary, but the township certainly wanted their money. I originally wanted to get up and say, what's the status with the Arcola Bridge? A lot of us haven't seen anything going on in a while.
That's a good question. We haven't received any updates on it other than...
No, we haven't.
I did. I was talking with Representative Verb's office, and apparently on the county website there are some, I think, some photos or maybe elevations of what the bridge would look like, because people were asking for the true plans. But other than that, I haven't looked any further and haven't heard anything else. But
It looks like some work has been done to the approach, but I haven't seen any dismantling of the bridge going on yet.
Yes, on the upper
Yeah.
Providence
Not
side.
much is going on, and there haven't been people there. No, I'm not there 24/7, but it doesn't look like anyone's been there for about a week.
Yep.
I don't know if somebody can follow up. I know they have a deadline, but we'd like to see it finished before the deadline.
we can definitely inquire, see where it is.
That'd be
We're, of course, not the ones that are paying the bill, and we didn't hire Alan Myers, but we can talk to the people that did.
I will give Leo Bagley a call at the county. It is the county bridge. We attended meetings every 2 weeks for well over a year, and we were actually the driving force to get it to the point where it is. And but we will definitely follow up now. They've got a good contractor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we've worked with the contractor. I've worked with the contractor. In fact, they just did our roads. But I'll talk to Leo Bagley at the county, and we'll see where they are in their progression.
Sounds great. I think all the residents would be pleased to see any progress or know what's going on or what the next steps might be. Thank you.
Okay.
We will be having a water line work happening, and there'll be a township phone call going out with update on when the work's going to be taking place. Denise is preparing that, I think, for tomorrow. Is that right? There'll be a township-wide call coming out on that. Okay, any other comments, questions? All right, hearing none, we can call for the adjourn this meeting. Anybody want to make a motion?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Motion a second, all in favor, send by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Drive safely.